a discussion of and insight into the events and concerns which punctuate our daily lives. Now, here is 610 WIOD radio talk show host, Sandy Payton.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Condo of Horrors. Our guest this morning is Vico Confino, who is an escapee from that situation, and many people, not only in this state, but around the country, are finding themselves in that type of situation. We're going to be discussing condominium living and some of the horrors that people are experiencing in that type of life that they never thought they would. Good morning, nice to see you.
Good morning, nice to be here, Sandy.
Condo of horrors. I mean, people move into condominiums many times to retire, many times to get away from the problems of the house, whatever the reason might be, to make life easier.
That's correct.
Not the case?
Well, that's what the Madison Avenue Dream Merchants have sold to hundreds of thousands of people here in South Florida and probably throughout the country. They led them to believe what they were going to get when they purchased this little dream in paradise was a carefree, low-cost, maintenance-free existence. No one to cut the grass, don't have to paint the buildings, don't have any problems or cares, just enjoy the good Florida sunshine. Unfortunately, that's not the way it turned out.
How did it turn out for you? What happened?
Well, when I came down approximately 10 years ago, I believed in that dream like everyone else, and I found out that many of these condominium complexes were not being maintained. The reason was really simple. When the developers turned over control of the condominiums to the owners just didn't have the experience or ability to manage them properly. So instead of maintaining the premises, it led to deterioration and neglect. It's been just a little over 20 years now that the first condominiums were sold. And the defects that were not so apparent 10 or 15 years ago are now surfacing, and they're causing many, many problems.
Like what?
Well, in Florida, you know, many of the complexes were built on the water, and they did require seawalls. And these seawalls, the life expectancy from my research has been approximately 15 to 20 years, and they do need work. Because of the drainage of water and many of the heavy rainstorms we suffer, the seawalls do have to be backfilled. We had a situation where the seawall is connected by means of tie rods. These are steel rods that connect the seawall that are attached to dead men. These are heavy concrete blocks that are set into the ground, and this holds the seawall and prevents it from falling into the water. Well, over the years, what happens with these heavy steel rods, they rust away and deteriorate. So when the earth is open, there is absolutely nothing holding the seawall in place. This is what a brand new replacement looks like in a steel tie rod. Unfortunately, what happens again is instead of completing the situation and correcting the problem, instead of placing one tie rod at each piling, which is the normal accepted manner, this board of directors chose to put one every fourth piling. So as you can see, it's what's called a temporary repair. The fact is, when the money ran out, they didn't even complete the job. So now the owners are living there without realization that what could possibly happen in a major storm, that seawall could fall into the river. Consequently, that would lead to a tremendous assessment, which each and every owner would have to share. This is not what people planned on when they came to Florida.
But these boards of directors in the various condominiums, they're condominium owners as well. Why are they not voting with the interest of themselves as well as the condo in mind as owners?
Okay, I have tried to come up with an answer to that. And what it is approximately 20 years ago when many of these people came down to semi-retire or retire, they were in the 55 to 65 age group. 20 years has gone by. Now they are in the 75 to 85 age group. They are no longer interested in the activities that they had when they first came down. They're not interested in the swimming pool. They're not interested in docking their boat. They're not interested in playing tennis. They're not interested in many of those things. Consequently, when the need to repair these common elements comes up, rather than vote for the monies that are necessary to do it, it's just allowed to deteriorate.
Why? Oh, I don't understand. Now, you moved out of a condo you were living in, correct?
That's correct.
Because you dared to speak out.
Well, that's correct. I can agree to that.
You dared to speak out against decisions of the board of directors, correct?
Right.
But you were speaking out against maintenance that needed to be done.
Correct.
Money that was being spent improperly. Where were the other homeowners, condominium owners?
Okay. You will find in the condo culture being a whole new area of living, a communal lifestyle, which everyone says requires that individuals give up a certain amount of rights. There's one thing about giving up those rights, and there's another thing about having them taken away by extortion and intimidation. This you will find is rampant in condominiums. If you do not go with the authority who is in power at that time, your life is made miserable.
By whom?
By the people who are in control of the condominium, the board of directors, the committees, the subcommittees, and the volunteers.
You dare to defy our decision will make your life miserable?
Right. There are 3 stages of having your life be made miserable. The first one is being called a troublemaker. This establishes the authority for them to harass you because you do not go along with the authority. The second phase would be if you continue what you're doing, then you are being a rebellious person. And as a rebellious person, like a child, you have to be taught a lesson. And in the third stage, when you are no longer reformable, you are called a recalcitrant owner. This is a heavy word, because most people have never looked in a dictionary to find out what it means, but it's ominous. Now, I was labeled a recalcitrant owner. I was told that I was going to be taught a lesson, that I should remain quiet, I shouldn't object to the authority, I should let things go just as they are.
Now, what things were you not willing to let go?
Well, we had a situation in a pool area where a considerate owner, I would say, or a well-thinking owner, tried to do something which basically backfired. This is a photo of the pool deck. There were puddles of water in the pool area. Someone drilled holes in that pool deck to allow the water to drain. What happened over the years, not only did the water drain, it took away the subsoil under the deck. Now, it didn't take 1 or 2 years, it took quite a few years. The result of that little action, here's a photo of the pool deck, and you can see the numerous cracks that formed from the settling because the subsoil washed out under the seawall and into the river. Now, this is a problem which in many condos that are built on the water is quite prevalent. To correct the problem, this costs enormous amounts of money. You need qualified professional people. Instead, what many of the well-meaning directors will do, they will call in unlicensed, basically people who don't have competency licenses, which are required by the state, to go and patch an area and cover it up and have it last just for a year or 2. The psychology of the situation, I'm very sad to say, is I'll be dead in a year or 2, who cares? So the problem is covered up, but it doesn't go away.
And you spoke out about that?
Yes, I spoke out about the cracks in the pool deck. I spoke about leaks in the swimming pool that had developed, where as much as 100,000 gallons of water was being lost every month. I checked with the local water department. They really couldn't care less. As long as you paid your water bill, they would not do anything about it. But the analogy with the people who had the ability to fix this was, it's $1 per 1,000 gallons. If we lose 100,000 gallons, it's costing us $100. If we have to repair it, it may cost us $100,000. So we'll be very happy to pay for the water and worry about things later.
And where did all of that event? It ended up in court.
Yes, it ended up in 3 lawsuits, 3 different lawsuits. One of the condominiums had sued me in an attempt to silence what I was doing by claiming that I had painted my terrace a non-conforming color. To make a long story short, it did go to court. I won the case. The condominium was required to pay my legal fees, which amounted to $5,200. For whatever reason, I don't know till this day, they did not pay it. My attorneys had to garnish their bank account. This added another $300 and some odd to the bill. But the tragedy of the situation is that each and every owner, through no fault of his own, had to pay for these legal fees. In the second lawsuit, the condominium sued me for purchasing the recreation area. Now, this was a very unique situation. I understand I'm the only unit owner ever to own his own recreation area in a condominium.
Why did you do that?
Well, what happened was I had tried by speaking at meetings, seeking professional help to advise these people what had to be done. I thought possibly the situation could be resolved in an amicable manner. I was ignored. Not only was I ignored, I was harassed, I was insulted, and I could see that this was something that could go on for years. It was a never-ending situation. What I had done was research the ownership of the recreation area. It was on a 99-year lease to the owners of the condominium. They were not maintaining it. They had told the unit owners that the developer was dead, that the land was in bankruptcy, and there was nothing that could be done. So what they were trying to do was negate my finding out what really was happening. I could not speak to anyone in any higher authority than the existing board. Well, through quite a bit of research, I found out that it wasn't true. The developer was not in bankruptcy. He was not out of business. He was alive and well in Detroit, Michigan. I contacted the developer, and after 4 months of negotiation, I did what no other unit owner ever did. I purchased my own recreation area. I owned the swimming pool, the clubhouse, the tennis court, the shuffleboards, the boardwalk, quite a nice piece of property. Of course, ownership meant nothing because it was under lease to the condominium, and all they were required to do was to maintain it. It was very simple. Rather than get involved in that and maintaining it, they chose to sue me, saying I purchased the property illegally. This, too, took over almost a year in court to resolve, because, as you know, the wheels of justice don't move quickly. When it came to court, my ownership of the property was affirmed, and I did win that particular suit. Again, because they lost, they had to pay not only their own legal fees, they had to pay my legal fees as well. By that time, I had filed a suit of my own demanding that they maintain my recreation area. As the owner of the recreation area, my attorney felt that my rights were much greater than just 1/300th owner as a unit owner. So we made our demands. We went into court with those demands. It took approximately 19 months to come to trial. And when it finally did come to trial, the judge who was hearing the matter felt that it really was not worthy of taking the court's time or having a jury decide in this matter. What he did was make a suggestion, and his suggestion was based on the premise that no matter what the condominium directors did, the bad feeling that had developed between myself and some other unit owners who were on my side, it was divisive. There were enemy camps. The judge felt that fixing the recreation area would not resolve the problem. So what he suggested was the associations purchase my condominium units, purchase my recreation lease, pay all of my legal fees. By the way, at that time they amounted to $37,000. So I don't have to tell you, I was, up until that moment, quite concerned. It's a considerable amount of money. And if we could come to that type of resolution, we could keep the case from going to trial. We did negotiate a settlement. The condominium associations did purchase my property, recreation lease, and pay all of my legal fees.
Was it worth it, though? We'll find out. We'll be back.
Okay.
And welcome back. I'm Sandy Payton. We continue with Vico Confino, who has been a victim of the, quote, condo myth, unquote. You're writing a book about all of this, aren't you?
Yes, that's correct, Sandy. It's sort of an exorcisation of all the years of trials and tribulations and trauma of being involved in this situation. It's something that I, least of all, figured would ever happen when I came to Florida to enjoy the good condo life.
Have you become a sort of a professional condo victim?
I've become a professional psychotherapist for many of the people who don't know where to turn, and it's very tragic. Many of the naturally senior citizens in Florida are trapped in condos. They're being harassed, they're being intimidated, and most tragic of all, they're being ostracized. They're being taught a lesson. And that is one of the problems in condominiums today.
Well, it sounds like there are these gangs of mobsters who sit on the boards and directors of all the condominiums. These are just people who are basically retirees, as the other people, who somehow decide they want to be a board of directors. What happens to them? What is the mentality there?
Well, the analyzation of the situation by most people is that it's an ego trip. Most people who have never had any power in their lifetime have come to Florida. They have attained this power, and they don't know how to handle it. And this leads to problems and does spoil the good life at condominiums. What I try to tell many of these people is, just because you are a passenger on an airplane does not mean you're qualified to fly it. And they would do themselves a lot of good is when they are asked to be on the board of directors, if they know they do not have the professional experience necessary to do the job adequately, if they would decline. It is not a position that one takes because of the social importance that it gives you. And many people regard condominiums as a social club. They forget that it's a business. A condominium is a corporation. It's chartered by the state of Florida. It's governed by rules and regulations. There is the Division of Land Sales in Tallahassee, which attempts to administer these rules. Of course, of late, because of the numerous complaints, they admit that they don't have the authority to control the situation. Consequently, what has happened is many of the suits that could be resolved by a governmental organization are ending up in the courts. The courts are not happy. The unit owners are not happy. I will say the lawyers are happy because they have found a pork barrel with unlimited funds to pay their fees. And this has become a very, very big situation in Florida.
Certainly never-ending, then.
It's a never-ending situation because you have to remember, what other profession in this whole wide world permits the loser to make as much as the winner? Now, two attorneys go into court, and it does not make any difference whether one wins or one loses. They both charge the equal fee. So what I say is what's missing is incentive. And if you were being paid $125 or $150 per hour for your work, would you care how long it took to settle a dispute?
No, but I don't understand the thinking of those in these condominiums who are willing to pay out money time and time again for maintenance fees, whatever it might be, and it runs into a lot of money after a while, and afraid to speak up about it.
Yes, well, again...
And I know you say they're going to get you and they're going to make your life miserable, but if the majority of people are speaking out, who's going to get who?
Well, you have to break it down. It's a little more difficult than that. You must remember, in most condominiums, not all of the people are in attendance throughout the year. You have what are commonly called snowbirds. If only 40 or 50% of the owners live there year-round, you have 50% of the owners who are not there. They come down just for a few months of the year. They enjoy themselves, and they leave, and they go back to their well-kept homes up north. What's left are people who, again, don't have the ability to govern these condominiums, and it becomes a personality clash. And I can tell you, in most cases, the reason for a dispute is soon forgotten, and it's a personal vendetta. When I left my condominium, one of the unit owners had told me that a board of directors said, this lawsuit was my personal vendetta against Vico Confino. Now, I mean, how much more arrogant can you get?
That's on record.
That's on record, yes. And, I think that is the tragedy, where individuals will pursue a vendetta against someone else using their so-called neighbor's money. I, at this point, don't call people who live in condominiums neighbors. It's a misnomer. They are co-owners in a corporation because they do not behave like neighbors. It's every man for himself, and if I can become a board of director, I'll take care of you, as long as you give me your vote and your support.
So then you now have people calling you saying help, willing to say, I need help here?
What can I do?
And what do you tell them?
I am not an attorney and I don't give legal advice, but that's one of the situations that myself and the jurisprudence system don't get along with. because I deal in common sense, and I certainly, in my own opinion, feel that is something that the law profession really enjoys ignoring. If a problem could be made more difficult to make the litigation last longer, then we must throw out common sense. Neither common sense nor logic exist in a poorly run condominium. I do want to make that note that not every condominium is a bad condominium. I am sure that there are qualified owners who sit on their boards of directors and they do a good job.
But how do you know ahead of time when you're buying a condominium and thinking of moving into a place? How do you know what you're moving into?
Well, you really don't, Sandy, unless you've had a background in business, in real estate, in engineering, in law. You have no way of knowing what you're buying into. And that's why I say that many people are trapped in a condominium. They've invested their life savings, they've moved into the condominium. Too late, they find out that low maintenance payments do not equate with a well-managed condominium. Many condominiums will keep the maintenance payments low expressly for the benefit of owners who are going to sell, thinking they will get a better price with a low maintenance payment. So what they do when maintenance has to be done is they make an assessment. These assessments can be done at any time for the necessity of maintaining the condominium grounds. So you are easily fooled by what you think you see, but what you don't see. I have done, as I say, in this past almost 10 years, so much research. And many people think that the book I have written and will soon be on the stands is all bad about condominiums. It's not. I would prefer that what I had learned in my battles and in my court days in this situation with attorneys, with engineers, with developers, with board of directors will help people. So I've enumerated
names and buildings and...
Well, I don't see any benefit if it serves a purpose in the book for some reason, but no, I hold no malice to anyone, not any of the unit owners, not any of the buildings. I feel sorry that their investment is going down the drain, but then again, I feel glad that I was extricated from the situation. So I intend to go on.
You're not living in a condo now?
No, I'm what is called a lowly renter. You see, condominiums today regard people who rent as something beneath owning. If you don't own, then you're not responsible. If you're a renter, you're a problem maker.
You're renting in a condominium?
I rent in a condominium, yes. So that I
So
don't
now they
have...
don't like you there either because you're a renter?
Well, no, it's not that they don't like me. The fact is, when we speak about some of the situations, they say they'd like to have me help them making rules. And I sort of think back when people say those things, they don't understand you cannot legislate people living together. You can make all the rules in the world. For people to coexist, it's got to be something other than rules. And again, I've come up with a little cliche, and I keep repeating it. The more rules you have, the more rulers you need to enforce them. And it's the same situation. Why do we take orders from a policeman? Because he has the authority to punish us.
If you could rewrite the condominium's charter and all of the laws, the bylaws, would they be simple? Or they really only say 10 basic things that need to be in every condominium's bylaws rather than books?
I would really like to see it. I'd like to see one rule, and I think that rule would just about cover everything, and that would be respect the rights of your neighbor or co-owner, whichever you prefer. I think everything emanates from the failure of people to respect the rights of their neighbor.
A fear of being ostracized.
Well, that's part of the gang mentality. That comes after failure to respect the person's rights. Then people divide up into gangs, and it becomes divisive. Once they divide up into these gangs, the whole situation deteriorates. Then it's World War III.
The majority of people sit back and agree with you, I'm sure. They see what's being done. And yet the majority of people sit back and allow it to happen. And you wonder, what is it going to take? When the seawall finally crumbles in, when, heaven forbid, we have that hurricane that smashes through everything and shows the defects, is that when people will say, my God, now I've got to spend a few $1,000s per condo in the building?
Well, it's almost like gambling, I'd say. That's what they're doing. They're gambling with their investment. People who paid I can give you an instance just recently in the area where I'm now living. Only 6 months ago, people paid up to $125,000 for a condominium, and the real estate broker just advertised for them for sale for $85,000.
Well, we're going to look forward to your book when it comes out. I hope you'll come back at that time.
Well, I'd like to very much.
What's it called?
The Wrath of Condo.
Wonderful. All right. Vico, thank you. And I thank all of you, and hopefully you are joining me every Sunday morning at this time on Payton's Place. Until next Sunday, have a wonderful week and make the most of it.